Okay, good evening. Call the meeting to order at 5:01. Start with additions, deletions to the agenda, administration, anything to add from administration?
Just the item 12.3 that is on the agenda is an addition for the office development here in the building.
Thank you. Councillor Dean?
Move that council adopts the agenda as amended.
Thank you, Councillor. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? That's carried. 3.1, adoption of the agenda. Is there anything council sees there? Any amendments?
That's what we just voted on.
Oh, sorry, that was number 2 and number 3. I was just going down the list on mine here. Number 4, sorry, 4.1, April 23rd, 2025, council meeting minutes. See anything, Councillor Wilhelm?
Motion to adopt the April 23, 2025 council meeting minutes as presented.
Thank you, Councillor. Discussion on the motion? Not seeing any, I'll call the question. All in favor? And that's carried. 7.1, policy 1907, volunteer and senior appreciation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We're requesting that this policy be rescinded. This policy was also discussed at the Governance and Priorities Committee. We are procedurally adjusting the plan to recognize our seniors and volunteers in another matter, and we didn't feel it was appropriate that it was a council policy, so we're requesting that it be rescinded.
Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? Or on the, sorry, the RFD? Councillor Dean?
I move that council rescind policy 1907, volunteer and senior appreciation.
Thank you, Councillor. Discussion to the motion? Not seeing any, I'll call the question. All in favor? 7.2, policy 1020, council remuneration committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This item is a request to rescind this policy. At the last council meeting, council adopted this committee formally in our committee bylaw, which is best practice procedure. So now that it is formally established by bylaw, it does not need to be a policy, and we're asking that it be rescinded.
Councillor Wilhelm?
I'll motion that council rescind policy 1020, council remuneration committee.
Okay, any discussion on the motion? Not seeing any, I'll call the question. All in favor? That's carried. 7.3, bylaw 625/20, or sorry, 626/25, 2025 property tax rate bylaw.
Thank you, Reeve. Members of council, you have before you bylaw 626/25, which is the property tax rate bylaw for 2025. And we're looking to hopefully get your 3 readings complete tonight. Pursuant to the MGA, the Municipal Government Act, council must pass the property tax bylaw annually. Adjustments to the 2024 interim budget were presented to council on April 23rd and are reflected in the taxation revenue to be generated through the bylaw. And that's for both the municipality and for requisitions. I would like to point out that Woodlands is responsible for contributing to police services under the policing funding model at a 50% cost recovery formula. And the MGA does not consider that to be a requisition, so it is included in our operating budget under protective services. A subclass has been established for non-residential small business pursuant to section 297 of the MGA and acted in Woodlands County Bylaw 51518. For the 2025 property tax year, the subclass tax rate has been established at 75% of the non-residential tax rate, which is the maximum allowed under Bylaw 51518. And as previously discussed with council at the Finance Taxation Committee, Bylaw 626/25 establishes a minimum property tax charge of $50 per parcel. So total taxation to be generated is 32.48 million, of which 6.77 million is school requisitions. And I want you to note that school requisition increased by 12.5% for 2025. And the balance is what we're collecting for municipal purposes of $25.71 million. I've attached a breakdown of the year-over-year assessment growth in Schedule A and examples of impacts on tax rates as compared to 2024 for residential and commercial ratepayers, and that's in Schedule B and C. just walk through them real quickly. You've seen this from Accurate Assessment. Our assessment increase for residential was about 105%, which was 3.5 of that was inflation, 1.6 growth. The non-residential growth assessment was 3.1% for new construction and 0.6% for inflation. So we have seen approximately a 5% increase inflation across the county for 2025. On Schedule B, this is an example of a residential property. I just used a valuation of $400,000 and increased it in increments of 3%, just so you can see what the impact of an assessment increase is to the ratepayer. So if you have a property that's worth $400,000 and your assessment does not change, you'll get a 2.15% tax increase in 2025, which is made up of, the majority of it is school taxes at 3.3, and it's actually a municipal reduction of 1.2%. If you had the average assessment increase, so close, well, it's 5%, but let's say 6%, you would see an increase of taxes of 8.28%, with the municipal portion being 2% of the 8.28. Schedule C, using the commercial mill rate, using the same similar values, $400,000 for with no assessment increase. You can see that their total tax increase would be 3.31%, with the municipal portion being 2.16. If you went by the average of commercial assessment increase of around 3%, it's about a 6.41% tax increase, of which 4.54 is municipal. And then the bylaw, we'll just point out some key highlights. So we've got a budget of $39,601,140, of which $32,476,175 is for general municipal property taxation, including 6.76 or 6,767,286 for requisitions. The requisitions are broken down for you in the bylaw. You can see the ASFF, the opted-out boards, Barhead, and Lac St. Anne, and also the designated industrial property, the levy for the designated industrial property. On page 2, we break out the total assessment for the county, excluding exempt properties. And you can see that it matches what we charge for general municipal purposes, because we use the full assessment base for general municipal purposes. Highlight some of the numbers. So the tax rate, which we have in mills for this bylaw, it's per $1,000 of property value. For residential improvements and farmland, we actually had a 2.25% reduction in the mill rate. For non-residential, we had a 2.81% increase in the mill rate. And then we added a new mill rate for small business, and you can see it's 75% of the non-residential mill rate. On the school foundation side, the municipal mill rate went up by 7.98%. And on the non-residential side, it went up 5.25%. On the last page, for the Lac St. Anne Foundation, their mill rate went up 1.33%. Linear went up 5.21%, and Barhead went up 12.8%. But I'll point out a majority of that is due to an underlevy from 2024. So their requisition is actually lower than what we're collecting this year because we had an underlevy. And then the dip went down, actually 8.3% for the 2025 taxation year. We've highlighted that there is a minimum amount payable per parcel for property tax at $50 a parcel. And if council has any questions, I'd be glad to answer them before we go to the first reading.
Thank you, Mr. World. Any questions for Andrew? Councillor Prestidge?
I'll make a motion that council give first reading to bylaw 626-25-2025, property tax rate bylaw.
Thank you, Councillor. Discussion on that motion? Not seeing any, I'll call the question. All in favor? That's carried. I'm moving to second reading if a councillor wants to. Councillor Burrows?
I'll move that council give second reading of bylaw 626/25, 2025 property tax rate bylaw.
Thank you, Counselor. Discussion on the motion? Not seeing any, I'll call the question. All in favor? That's moved. We need unanimous. Counselor Kukin.
I move that council give unanimous consent to proceed to third and final reading to bylaw 626/25, 2025 property tax rate bylaw.
Thank you. Again, discussion on the motion? Not seeing any, I'll call the question. All in favor? That's moved. And if we want to give third in, Counselor Wilhelm.
I'll motion that council gives third reading to bylaw 626/25, 2025 property tax bylaw.
Thank you, Counselor. Call the question. All in favor? And that's carried. 7.4, policy IS.I-6.401, annual equipment and truck registration. Good evening, Jeff.
Good evening, Worship and the members of council. In the past several months, the administration has received comments from staff and the local private operators regarding concerns on the registration requirements in terms of its safety documentation requirements and insurance and WCB as per the current policy 3207. We have conducted a review of the current policy that highlights a number of areas for improvement. Number one, the inconsistent requirements of insurance in the body of the policy versus its schedules. Number two, undefined amounts for some insurance types. Number three, requiring contractors, regardless how big or small they are, to carry a core, ME core or SE core. Number four, some of the safety qualifications from small contractors may be a daunting task for them. Number five, the annual registration is intended for January 1st to December 31st, but based on our current policy, the advertising schedule is actually within that period of time. Generally, you want the advertising to be before the cycle starts. And lastly, the rotation, the current rotation is based on a numerical alphabetical system, which, depending on how you choose the spelling of your company, you may be advantaged in that or disadvantaged. So understanding those areas of improvement, we have drafted the attached policy as well as a procedure to supplement the policy to address the noted items, noted areas of improvement by, number one, splitting the policy into a policy and a procedure to allow easier update to administrative items. Number two, to identify minimum insurance requirements, and these are the requirements provided by RMA Insurance, and that will be written into the procedure. Number three, to define the requirements only in either the policy or the procedure, but not both. Otherwise, it's just creating confusion and duplication and cases of conflict. And number four, instead of requiring some kind of a core and other safety plans, which may be daunting for some of our local small operators, we borrowed the idea from Yellowhead County and Luxembourg County to have a contractor orientation process rather than requiring them to have the safety plans up front. So we will be the one providing training to bring them to level practice of our expectation. Number five, we want to change the rotation to be based on more of a timely submission of a completed package. So whoever submits first of a complete package will get the first order of precedence, and we felt that was probably a fairer way compared to the numerical alphabetical ranking. Number six, we want to change the advertising timeline to be before the year starts, so towards the end of the previous year. And lastly, we want to make the procedure generic for all activities that we may use a contractor for, not just specifically to a single task, so to provide further clarity. I have spoken to Mr. Roach because there is connection to expanding local operators. This is economic opportunity for them if we make the threshold a bit more welcoming for the local to the local contractors. So we do believe our local business community should welcome the opportunity so that they have a greater inclusion in the county contracting process. Because we already started the current year under the current policy 3207, the 2025 year, assuming council will approve this or adopt this policy, 2025 year will be somewhat of a hybrid. We're going to have some companies registered under the old process and some of the companies registered under the new process. And we just have to try our best to try to manage their rotation to make sure it's as fair as possible. Of course, we'll see how this year, assuming council adopts the new policy, see how this year works and make adjustments if something doesn't make quite the intent. Construction season is about to start. That's why we are urgently taking this policy before council without going through the governance and priorities committees first. I have attached the draft policy and the draft procedure in the RFD. Thank you very much. I'm open to take any of your questions.
Thank you. Councillor Prestige and then Councillor Dean.
Through the chair to Jeff. On the rate that we pay our contractors, we were going by Alberta Road Builders, that's 20%, I think it was. 15? I don't see why we have to go any deduction off of Alberta Road Builders. Because the way it works is Alberta Road Builders rates, as the equipment gets older, it decreases in the hourly rate. And if you get an older piece of equipment that still does the same job as the new one, less the 15%, they're not gonna come and work for you because they can't afford it. I know contractors that will not work for the county anymore because they can't get a decent rate. One guy, he's got a tractor backhoe. With the county, he's getting $65 an hour for it. When he's working with the oil field, he's getting $150, and they're doing the same job. So I think that should be abolished.
So I would also like to point out, though, in my experience, people who contract pricing to oil field rates typically pay a lot higher than even private contractors and builders. And I did clearing in my property. I had a quote for a guy to come do it who typically does oil field work. His estimate for me was $10,000 to $15,000 to clear 2 acres of trees. Another private contractor who doesn't contract through oil field, his rate was $2,500. So, looking at the scope of what you're doing and the work, I don't believe it's completely fair to compare one seat to an oil field rate.
The $150 an hour is above Alberta Road Builders rates.
Mm-hmm.
But we should be paying our contractors Alberta Road Builders rates.
Jeff?
So the chair to Councillor Prestige, the setup of 15% deduction from ACA rate has been the county's practice for at least the past 5 years. I can't go back before the current policy. In the current policy, in the proposed policy, it's unchanged. I just basically carried. I have not heard concerns that contractors won't work for ACA rate minus 15%. I did speak to 2 contractors myself, asking them what's their opinion on 85% of the ACA rate. And the answer I received was it's about just right. I guess we can let this year proceed as is, and if we're not getting contractors, then that may be the issue.
Councillor Dean?
Just had a question about the safety training. So in the absence of Corps, ME Corps, SE Corps, approximately how long do you spend with a contractor? What does that look like?
So the chair to Councillor Dean, that detail is being worked out, but we're targeting a PowerPoint presentation in person because we want to target the operators, not the company owners. We hope to have one here and one in the Fort, or have one before the job starting near the job site. But it's intended to be hour, maybe 2 hours session to cover various different safety topics as well as work flow, work process, who to give order, what if there's emergency, those kind of topics. The presentation is currently being developed.
Thank you.
Councillor Whelan? Oh, sorry, Mr. Ferris, and I'll go to Councillor Whelan.
Just a point of clarification to expand on what Jeff is indicating to you as well is there's also clarification both in the, I believe it's in the draft procedure where the gravel checker or the employee that's responsible for doing that will have complete safety authority on those operators. So if there's any indication that they are operating unsafe or not in line with our safety practices, the expectation as per this policy is they will be removed from site immediately. There will be no discussion, and that individual will have complete authority on those sites to remove contractors as needed. And also I think we're estimating that the training session will probably be somewhere an hour and a half to a 3-hour session.
Thanks.
Sorry, Councillor Williams.
I was just gonna say, I like the changes in the policy, because I had some people talk about this exactly, but the rate, I think the small businesses will probably not argue the rate a whole bunch, because they don't have to carry core and a big safety program, so they'll have some savings on that end. Obviously, I'd be okay if it was at 100% of the road builder, but yeah, I think this does well for small businesses within the county that will be probably signing up for this now that never did before. So I like the changes to this policy. Thank you for the work you did on it.
Councillor Dean?
Through the chair to administration, what was the rationale to set the rate at 15% less?
Through the chair to Councillor Dean, I frankly don't know the rationale. It's just been a practice of this county from what I can find.
Councillor Burrows?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just gonna say, I've had a couple of calls on these issues, so thanks for the clarification on the insurance, and I think the dropping the requirement of core is a good option for us. I don't know where to go with this rate conversation, though. I haven't heard anything about the rates from my end, unless somebody else has, but I haven't.
Jeff was saying if we're still getting contractors bidding on the current rate, I don't see a need to adjust the rate, you know, if the work is there. Councillor Prestige?
This come about, Andre brought it up. And he decided we should be at 15 or 85%. And, because we were at 100% before that. And for some reason, he thought he could get the paperwork cheaper. Because we were going through our crunch time and everything. But I have people talking to me about not working for the county with equipment. Because I know a lot of them. And I just don't think it's fair that we should take advantage of our local contractors that are ratepayers too, by shortchanging them on the rate.
Jeff, and then over to Councillor Coogan.
Through the chair to council, other counties' practices including pay a contractor ACA rate at 100% or have a open bidding process. With the open bidding process, the county can still entitle to lower rates than ACA rate, but it's a lot more administrative process that we have to administer. I think whether we adopt a competitive bidding process or just set a rate as 85%, it's yielding the same end result. As I said, I'm more than willing to relook at the rates again towards the end of the year to see if we are getting difficulties getting contractors, if that's the reason.
Thank you. Councillor Coogan?
Yeah, through the chair to Bruce, maybe, There was some clarification I think you were asking for as well on the age of the equipment. Because in the road builders, the age of the equipment is reflective on the rate.
Yeah.
And I think that I have to agree that, equipment, a piece of equipment that's 8 years old will do the same job as one that's new. So it's, in fact, a lot of times, the new ones are down more than the old ones. So I'm just curious as how that works.
Jeff?
To answer, through the chair to Councillor Cookin, to answer your question, our current rate book, separate equipment is 3 different age classifications. One's current model, second is non-current model, and third is previous model. In our policy, and that part is unchanged in the new one, is county will accept any equipment that's in the current and non-current categories. What we will not accept is in the previous category. The previous category equipments are generally equipments 15, give or take 15 years older than the current year.
Thank you. And I do agree if we're, well, your comment, we might have to relook at the policy later on at the rates if we have problems getting contractors, but currently if we're still getting contractors at the rates that are here or doing a bidding process, if we change to that, it's gonna kind of show the same, I guess, rates where we're at currently. I'd be in favor of just leaving the rates as is for now and reevaluating if we end up short on contractors or people offering to put in work. Councilor Burrows?
Yeah, and just one other thought on that. It's not necessarily sometimes just about the fact that you can get a bid on it. But if you're, I think everyone at the table has found that the lowest bid is usually not the cheapest way to do something. So if you're losing bids from companies that are, I don't know how to say this, that may do a better job for the money, that may be detrimental to what we're actually trying to achieve here. So I don't know how to figure that out, though. We'd have to do some kind of evaluation to figure that out.
Councilor Williams?
I don't mind the 85% rate, like, get over that, but just for clarification, you said 15 years from now, we won't accept anything over 15 years old from 2025?
Through the chair, Councillor Williams. Yes, so currently in 2025, we're using 2024 rate book. So 2024 year book, the current and non-current model will cover any piece of machine that's 2011 and newer. So that's where the 15 comes from.
I really struggle with that because, like, the gravel haul is such a prime example. If a truck is a tritum, it can haul the same amount no matter what year it is. 15 years old isn't that old on a truck, and I don't think I get on board with that. We don't pay them if they're broke down anyways. Like, I don't know why the year would make that much difference. If they break down, they're on their own time. The county's not losing money. It might impede the gravel haul, but weed out those contractors that are always broke down. And, like, I don't know. I struggle with the year on that. I can't.
Councilor Prestige?
Through the chair to Jeff. This has come up before where when we looked at a grader contract and we wouldn't hire them because their grader was too old. But when our graders broke down, who did you call? Them with their old graders to grade the roads. So we're contradicting ourselves. And you can have a piece of equipment. I know a guy's got some 2 old D8 cats that go to work almost every day, and they're 1960s. And they do the same job as a brand new cat. And he keeps them in good condition, and they work. It's the same thing. We're penalizing our residents, the ratepayers that are paying for the equipment, by some rules that we come up with. And I feel that is totally wrong.
Jeff?
Through the chair to Councillor Prestige, Reviewing whether we would accept previous model was not part of my, I didn't flag that as one area of improvement. I just basically carried. If I'm coming up to a time crunch here, trying to find contractors and trying to make the process easier for contractors. Thinking through potential options here, would council be okay if I make a modification to the policy, removing the statement that county will only hire current and non-current equipment, and move that into procedure, which I can change? That will give me more time to allow the policy to be adopted, work on the procedure in the next week or so, come to some ways of rationalizing, because, breakdown is their problem, for sure. However, as Councillor Williams pointed out, there is interruptions to a county hall operation or county work operation that the cost may be well beyond the cost to repair a piece of equipment. I suspect that's the reason why they pick some years in there. But if council's willing to allow me to make that modification and give me the ability to study a bit more on whether we should accept previous models and make that change into procedure, I would appreciate that, because I, as I said, I'm up to a time crunch here.
Councillor Prestige?
Well, the thing is, like on our gravel hauls, if you go buy a new gravel truck right now, the truck is probably with a box and a pup is probably $350,000. And you cannot make a living with that unit working for the hourly rates that the county pays, even on Alberta road builders rates. You can't do it. So, and they're broke down half the time with the new computer stuff and pollution stuff. That's why people are fixing these old trucks up and running them, so they can afford to make a living.
Okay, Councillor Williams, Councillor Kukin, and then we'll try to move this along.
I was just gonna say, I like that idea. That's probably the only thing that I'm actually struggling with. All the changes that you made, you obviously put a lot of thought into, and I really appreciate that. I know you pulled some of the old stuff, but yeah, I think that's a good way to do it. See if we could implement it where they accept a little bit older stuff this year, see how it all goes, and then it's a great way to shape the policy going forward. So thank you.
Councillor Kukin?
Yeah, I'm through the chair to Jeff. I'm comfortable with that happening as well. With the trucks, they all have to go through safety inspection and certification anyway. And if they're leaking oil and they're not maintained, they're definitely not going to be on a haul. I'm not so certain that there's any kind of designation like that for your heavy equipment, but that's probably one that I think that project management should have some kind of a discretion to be able to say, no, you can't hire that. And how you manage that's it's probably going to be difficult.
Okay, thank you. So with that, we do have a couple motions here. The first one is to rescind the current policy 3207, and then the second one to adopt the modified policy. Councillor Dean?
I'm prepared to make motion one, but I just want to clarify when we get to motion two what you're looking for. So we're not necessarily going to adopt this policy, adopt it with changes as presented. Is that what you're thinking?
Adopts policy, adopt amended policy as discussed.
Okay. All right. So I'll make motion number one that council rescinds policy 3207.
Thank you, Councillor. Discussion on that motion? Not seeing any, I'll call the question. All in favor? That's carried. And there's motion two. Anyone wants to make the motion?
I can make it. I just can't remember exactly what he said.
Councillor Williams?
That council adopts,
Oh,
policy IS .1-6.401 with changes as discussed, annual equipment and truck registration.
thank you, Councillor. Works Administration, any discussion on that motion?
Just a friendly amendment, it would be policy I-6, not 1-6.
Okay.
Cool. Thank you. Friendly amendment there. So amended policy, any discussion on the motion? Not seeing any, I'll call the question. All in favor? And that's passed. Down here, 11, 8.1, Northern Regional Economic Development Program update. Mr. Roach.
Good evening, Your Worship and Council. My pleasure to be here with you once again. We have in front of you an RFD which contains an update to the application that we have, successful application that we have received under the NRED program. And we did have a very robust and thorough discussion at our last Economic Development Committee meeting, which helped us to get solid direction from our Economic Development Committee to lay out some of the actionable items that we would like to see coming out of the NRED. So I would like to draw everyone's attention to, we do have under rationale for recommendation, the motion that was passed by the Economic Development Committee was that the ECDev Committee recommends to Council that NRED monies be used to generate an RFP that would allow for the development of marketing materials to identify heavy industrial sites in Woodlands County as soon as possible. And then coming from that, we have a list of some of the key deliverables for that RFP underneath. And the key thing, I think, with the RFP to draw Council's attention to is the entire intent of this RFP would be to identify the sites in Woodlands County where we have critical infrastructure or where we have existing infrastructure or great things that we know that we can leverage. We want to make sure that we're taking our best possible local information to market, and so this is that very first logical step in establishing and bringing those things forward. And then that led us into, in regards to having a discussion with the NRED team, which is overseeing our grant. You have attached there a bit of a revision of the budget. So this is the line item that was in the initial NRED application under the investment and marketing expenditures. So that total line item that was approved was $281,000. So that balance still stands to be true with the total of all of those sums of items. But what we have broken out is a request for $150,000 for not just establishing, but for completing that RFP as quickly as possible. We do anticipate that we can do it within the 2025 calendar year. And then that would leave us with a balance for other monies within the NRED program, and it is a 3-year program, so we would have some additional money in 25, again in 26, and again in 27 that we can put towards Woodlands County marketing activities for investment attraction, and then we've broken those out across that 3-year timeline. So the two items at the top of that list, the EDA Invest Alberta Guide, that's something that we haven't advertised in for the last several years because we haven't had a large enough budget to be able to do so. But the vision is that we would be advertising in that on an annual basis with a 1-page ad. YOLO Nomads is a group that we have talked about contracting to in order to engage the digital workforce and to try to attract digital workers to Woodlands County based on our lifestyle and all that we have to offer. And then we further break that down into 2 other items, which is for investment attraction advertising, which helps us to leverage, and this a lot of this came from the EDA conference that we just recently attended, so that we can leverage all of our ties that we have with Invest Alberta, with the Trade Commission offices, with the work that the province and other provincial entities are already doing in regards to investment attraction, and then also to have some left over to do investment attraction advertising campaigns in those kinds of publications. The last part of the budget items, or the budget item, is to take a look at possible national advertising. So as everyone here knows, we did do an ad in the National Post back in January that was roughly about a $6,000 to $6,500 or $6,000 to $6,500 item, and so that's kind of the intent, is that we would have a sum of funds there to use over the 3 years to be able to do national advertising or targeted advertising in industry publications. And then all of that rounds out the 281, and then we have down at the bottom just a bit of a summary of that. So with that, because we did have such a robust and great discussion at our Economic Development Committee, I certainly would invite comments from Councillor Wilhelm and Councillor Dean, and also Councillor Williams, because I know you kind of read in on the notes and all of that. So please add any further detail or mention anything else you would like to, and then of course I'll be here for questions as well.
Thank you, Councillor Dean.
Yeah, so I just like to follow on what Bert mentioned in terms of that robust discussion. This grant, or the possibility of accessing these funds was brought to council's attention right in the middle of our budget cycle, and there was some confusion as to what exactly we were going to do with the funds. And so during that committee meeting, there were lots of really good ideas put forth by committee members, which really shaped and gave Mr. Roach some direction to come up with what he has here, which I think is reflective of what the county wants to do. So I appreciate the work and good job.
Thank you.
Anything else from council? Councillor Wilhelm.
Just want to echo Councillor Dean's comments. I thought that meeting was really awesome. It took a really strong direction as we moved forward on it, and I'd like to see where it's coming to from that bird. It's awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Coogan.
Yeah, I'm going to wear a bit of a different hat on this one with my relationship with the Rita. And I think that what I'd like to say is that I'm really happy to see the direction that the Economic Development Committee has taken here, because this is in alignment with the goals and the things that we, how we want to relate with different municipalities and different communities in the northern region. And it also reflects the fact that that kind of was the intent of the government in the first place, to have the region align itself in a way that is very comprehensive, so that some real collective and collaborative ideas and creative ideas would come to the table. So this is, in my view, this is in alignment with the very conversation I had yesterday with the people from SIL. And I'm hoping that you're going to sit down with us and give us a bit of a guidance as to how we can enhance this as well.
My pleasure to do so. Thank you.
Anything else for Mr. Roach? Councillor Dean.
If there's nothing, I'd move that Woodlands County Council directs administration to generate an RFP that will allow for the development of marketing materials identifying heavy industrial sites in Woodlands County as soon as possible.
Thank you, Councillor. Discussion on that motion? Not seeing any public question. All in favor? That's carried. So second motion there. Councillor Wilhelm.
I'll motion that Woodlands County Council adopts the amended NRED budget as presented.
Thank you, Councillor. Discussion to the motion? Not seeing any. I'll call the question. All in favor? That's moved. Just gotta jump back here in the agenda. Sorry, missed number 9. Council reports and questions. Councillor Wilhelm.
Through the chair to Bert, just while I have you here,
Yes.
did we? I can't remember. Did we select a date for our workshop for the business directory, or we're gonna doodle poll it?
Yeah, we'll do the doodle poll. I'm really happy to report to council. We're in the, 10 days in to having our full-time MECDev admin, and it's going wonderfully well, and more to come.
Excellent.
You're us, Mr. Roach.
Thank you.
Sorry, council reports and questions. I'll start, Councillor Dean.
Thanks. Fairly busy schedule, I guess you'd say. On the 24th, as mentioned, we had an excellent active committee meeting that resulted in the RFD that was before you. The next day, Friday the 25th, I went to Athabasca for the a board meeting for the Athabasca Watershed Council, and it's I think having somebody from our county on that board is a good idea. There's a lot happening with that. Unfortunately, I don't have a budget report for you guys to give you an indication of how big the budget is and what exactly they're doing with it. Their meeting was structured a little differently, so I don't have that, but I will get those numbers and just share them with everybody. And then on May 3rd, I attended the Volunteer Appreciation Supper in Anselmo, along with Reeve Cush and Councillor Wilhelm. The event was really well received. Talked to anybody that was there. I don't think I've laughed quite so much in a long time. Danny Hooper was the MC, and he's his own dude, and he was funny as heck. So I got a real kick out of just watching the crowd react to what he had to say, and it was pretty funny. On the 5th, I attended the Murdered and Missing Indigenous Women, Girls, and Two-Spirit Walk at Festival Park, and it was very well attended. That was put on by the Wickard Indigenous Friends Society. And then yesterday, along with Councillor Culkin, Prestige, and Reeve Cush, I attended the Ag Service Board meeting. And that's it.
Thank you, Councillor. Any questions for Councillor Dean? Seeing any, Councillor Wilhelm.
Okay, so I had a somewhat busy 2 weeks, I guess. On the 24th, I got to go for lunch with Minister Long. Every few months, we like to go to Spruce Valley View Lodge and have lunch with the seniors there. I'm also on the board for Lac St. Anne Foundation, so it gives me a chance to sit down with the seniors and pick their brains on what's going on at the lodges and anything they'd like to see or things I can bring back to the board for consideration. So I enjoyed doing that, so that was a good time. And then the next Monday, Tuesday, we had our strat planning workshop for Lac St. Anne Foundation, where we discussed some new funding models and rent models for the facilities. That board is, one of the big drives of that board is trying to make the foundation much more self-sufficient so that we can potentially in the future limit increase in requisitions, et cetera, just to lessening the impact of the downloading that happens from the Alberta government to our residents. So that's a big push from that foundation's board, is to strategically plan how to make ourselves, or to make that foundation more sustainable. And then I also went to the volunteer awards banquet. I just want to congratulate all the winners. I wish I had a list here. I can't remember everybody's names, but they were all very well deserving, and there was a lot of nominations up there for them. And then just wanted to let council and administration know the May 21st meeting, I won't be here. I'm away for work north of 101, and we really doubt I'll have cell reception or internet reception up there, so I won't be at that meeting.
Thank you, Councillor. Any questions for Councillor Wilhelm? Councillor Dean?
Not so much a question, but just a comment. Big congratulations and thanks needs to go to Heather Anderson for putting on that volunteer supper. She worked very hard, and it was really well received. So kudos to Heather if she's listening.
And to the other staff who helped put it on and operate and run and do all the cleanup. It was a great event, and the county staff did a fantastic job. Thank you. Councillor Kuchen?
Yeah, I wasn't here for the last council meeting on the 24th, so on the April 10th, actually attended the community services meeting, and that was when we picked the volunteers or the volunteer appreciation folks, and it was quite a process because there were so many nominations to go through. Then the 14th, we were at the district meeting in Edmonton, the Pembina District 3 meeting. The 15th, 16th, we had our social impact lab, which was the second stage in the Growth Alberta Partnership of identifying the issues and the things that we need to do in order to really have a robust regional economic development strategy. Our economic development officer attended there, and I believe one of the economic development committee members as well. Patricia was there, and it was a pretty incredible event. 2 days of really some of the uncomfortable conversations that we needed to have about how we proceed as a region. Then on the 17th, I had an FCSS board AGM and meeting. And then on the 22nd, 23rd, and 24th, I was in Edmonton at the hydrogen conference. Incredibly interesting. It was really amazing to see the advancement in that technology in 1 year. The new things that are going on. One of the takeaways that I got there, though, was that it's going to be incredibly hard for that industry to really start to have an impact in the short term, just because of course, the insecurity in the investment that's going on in the world right now. But the other one is that there's just no infrastructure there for that yet. And one of the things we heard over and over again with all the panel discussions was that we have to, as municipalities and governments, become very creative in trying to figure out how to get investment into that sector, because it will be a big part of the energy play down the road. And you could really see the advancement even in the way that they're going to be transporting those goods. Like a bottle this big would run a furnace for 5 or 6 hours, and that's exactly what it would be in. Hydrogen would be in, and it was just amazing. Bruce and I were on that tour. And then on the 1st of May, I met with the website developer to shape the new scope of work for the tourism website, because after the assessment we did on the current one, it just wasn't going to work the way it was. It wasn't branded properly. The old committee didn't utilize all of the professional people they should have, and so it wasn't effective. And so that's ongoing now. We just got the scope of work to the designer. Then I also attended the volunteer appreciation supper on 3rd of May, and that was, like Al and everyone said, it was an amazing event. It was one of those things that you don't easily forget. It was a lot of laughs, and it was the first time for a long time that you could just forget and enjoy yourself. We had Ag Services Board meeting on the 6th of May, and then that afternoon I had a follow-up session with the Social Impact Lab to set up the follow-up meetings for all of the regions that were represented there. It was Hinton, High Prairie, Big Lakes, 4 First Nations, 2 Métis settlements, Woodlands, Mirethorpe, and Swan Hills were at that session, and they wanted to move forward with some of the things that we were talking about. So we've got really good interest, and finally we're starting to get to what SiteLink actually started here in the first year that I was on council. So it takes a long time. And then today I was on the Northern Alberta Food Marketers Association strat planning session, and it's part of the stuff that I do regionally, just to see what's going on beyond our borders and how we can align some of the ideas and some of the things that they do here. And that's it.
Thank you, Councillor. Any discussion for Councillor Coogan? Councillor Williams?
I've been very busy with my other jobs, so I actually haven't been too much. I did miss the ACDEV meeting, and then everything else that I had scheduled got postponed until later this month and next month, so I haven't been doing too much council stuff here in the last little bit.
Thank you. Councillor Prestidge?
Well, pretty much Peter stole my thunder for everything that we've done.
Sorry.
But on the hydrogen convention, it is so interesting, the technology that's coming out of there. We toured the ATCO facility in Fort Saskatchewan. It's kind of a research and development facility, and that's where they're doing they're infusing hydrogen with the natural gas, and they're feeding 2,200 homes and businesses in Fort Saskatchewan with 5% hydrogen. And they're looking at raising it up to 20% hydrogen. The only thing holding them back is the hydrogen is very corrosive, so they don't know on the piping in the appliances whether it can handle it or not. But they're doing more testing on it, and they want to get up to about 30%. There's some places in Europe that is doing 30%. Where they're getting their hydrogen from, they have a pilot plant there. They take natural gas, crack the hydrogen out of it, and you're left with the methane and everything else. So they want to, or actually they're taking the methane, and somehow they're injecting molten aluminum into it. They got pallets of ingots of aluminum blocks, and it's way beyond me how it works.
It's science.
But they actually get carbon black out of it, and it comes out of a pipe and falls into a big bag. And they sell that to make carbon fiber. So it's really interesting, the technology. And what Peter was saying about the little bottle, there's a company that was there, and this lady is the owner and did everything on it. She's a chemist. They devised a way to transport hydrogen, because pretty hard to transport hydrogen, it's very volatile. So they infuse it in an oil that's very similar to diesel fuel, which makes a totally different chemical, which is basically inert. And when they get it to where they want to go, they run it through electrolysis and pull the hydrogen off of it. And like, you can carry it around on a 5-gallon pellet if you wanted to. And where this is going is there's a shipping company out of Singapore has approached them to take this hydrogen infused oil to use as ballast in their ship, to ship across the ocean. When it gets to the other end, they take that oil out, take the hydrogen out, put the oil back in, and ship it back and redo it, and it just goes back and forth.
That's neat.
So it's amazing what they come up with. On one of the panels, they had I'm gonna call him the CAO or whatever it is of the big port up at Prince Rupert. And he was on this panel, and also was a guy from South Korea. He runs a big steel mill, which they have their own power plant, and they're using coal to generate power. They're switching it over, they want to go 100% hydrogen. So they're going to need 30 million ton of hydrogen per year to run this plant. The port is just building their port for loading liquid hydrogen. And they thought they were doing something really big. They were building it for 7 million ton a year. So they're 23 million tons short already. So it's amazing what's going on. And if there's any young kids thinking of going to school, take chemistry or electricity or whatever, it's just endless what's there. And I spoke with Hardeep, the mill manager at West Fraser the other day. He didn't want to tell me too much, but they're not having any curtailments or anything at the mill. Everything's gonna go as planned. I asked him about, are you not shipping to the US? And he said, no, we're still shipping just as much as we always have. The lumber companies down there are paying the tariff because the lumber they have down there is that southern yellow pine, and it does not meet the construction ratings that our lumber does. They cannot make trusses out of it. So he says they're not going to be shutting down anytime soon. The MDF plant, he said he wasn't quite sure about yet, but it looks like everything's going to keep rolling there, so which is really good for our region. So Peter and I are going to go for a tour there on Friday of the mill, and we're talking about some other stuff about their fly ash and stuff. So, really interesting.
Any other questions for Councillor Prestige? Councillor Burrows? Sorry, Councillor Coogan?
Yeah, I don't know if you were in on the discussion as well, but one on the panel discussion is that one of the things that were really prevalent there is that a lot of these companies are looking to get out of the current investment structure because it's just so it doesn't work for them effectively, and so I was in on a lot of these conversations of how we're going to have to become creative there, because of the new normal in the world, there's a real sense that the American dollar no longer is going to be the currency of choice in the future. So there's a lot of investment people that come to these conventions now that are trying to figure out how they're going to get investment for some of these huge projects, because the traditional investment stream isn't there for them. That was just, so it's an opportunity for us to explore.
Anything else for Councilor Prestige? Seeing none, Councilor Burrows?
Well, I'm gonna seem kind of boring after all those kind of highlights, because all I got to do was attend a 3-day seminar on insurance. So that was really fun, and I saw one of our staff there, Lan, who was looking through the risk pro stuff along with the canoe purchasing, trying to keep prices down for everything that we buy. Lot of discussion around cyber attacks, huge cyber attack conversation. There are no underwriters for cyber attacks. RMA is actually the only player that's offering, and we're just offering it to municipalities because the coverage is outrageously expensive. So because there's no way to assess the risk on a cyber attack. It could be whatever the check they frauded you out for is, or shut down your entire operation for a month. So it's getting pretty crazy though. A lot of discussion around weather related and wildfire as well. That was really it for me, but that was 3 wonderful days. I got to break that up with a council meeting that I attended online while I was there too. So that was it for me. Oh, and I got to watch an election and use my phone TV brick. So that was good.
Any questions for Councilor Burrows? Seeing none, my last couple weeks are a little bit slower. One thing I do want to say about the extra to the volunteer appreciation night, I would like to thank Barton Long for showing up. Gave a speech and donated some of the rally, gifts that they had, the raffle gifts to the individuals. So his attendance there was greatly appreciated. We did have Glenn Van Dyken on the list, but unfortunately he ended up busy that evening and had to send his regrets. And on top of that, the ASB, the only thing that kind of, stood out to me through a big part of our ASB, board meeting, was the travel that we're starting to see on the wild pigs. Typically, they tended to be in the Ensemble zone, but we are finding they have 3 of them now. They ended up taking out at the end of Range Road 120, and they believe that there's more up there currently, so they are looking into it. But they do move. They do kind of go where path of least resistance, and they're finding in other parts of our county now. So it was a little bit of a shocker, but also again not really surprising when you take a look at the map. It's not far from where they have been seen to where they are as far as the crow flies, anyways. With that, any other questions? If I can get a motion to move the council reports. Councilor Burrows?
I'll make a motion to move council reports.
Thank you, Councilor. With that, I'll call the question. All in favor? That's carried. And looking at the agenda here, that moves us to our closed session. If I can get a motion to go into closed session. Councilor Wilhelm?
Through the chair to Administrator, do you want me to just list all the FOIP sections that we'd be going underneath? Okay, I'll make a motion to go into closed session under FOIP 24, 17, 27, 16, and 19.
Thank you, Councilor. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? With that, it's carried, and we are going into closed session at 6:05.